NATO Commander General Matthews said to President Traoré with a smile. "This base isn't going anywhere. This is beyond your power." 48 hours later, the same general would understand how wrong he was. While packing his bags because Traoré wasn't just closing a base, he was rewriting the entire military future of Africa. On Tuesday morning, a routine security briefing was being held at the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. The humid, tropical air spread the monotonous hum of fans throughout the room. Ibrahim Traoré was listening to the weekly reports as usual, but this morning, the documents brought by Foreign Minister Ahmed Konaté, with his sweating forehead, "Would change everything, Mr. President," said Konaté, his hands trembling as he placed the thick file on the table. "We have intelligence reports about the Durand NATO base. Things you absolutely need to know." Ibrahim Traoré, the 35-year-old revolutionary leader, was looking at Ouagadougou's silhouette under the dust cloud from his office window. The NATO base that had been standing outside the city for 15 years was established under the name of fighting terrorism, but terrorism had increased instead of decreasing. "I'm listening," said Traoré, turning and sitting in his leather chair, while interlacing his fingers. Konaté opened the file. The photographs, audio recordings, and documents that emerged were shocking. "Sir, we have evidence showing the real activities of the NATO base. Fighting terrorism is just a front in reality." "In reality what?" asked Traoré, frowning and leaning forward. "They're mapping our gold mines and uranium deposits with satellite imagery. And worst of all," Konaté paused, swallowed, "they're sabotaging our agreements with China." Traoré's finger struck the table hard. Now everything made sense. The NATO base wasn't just a military facility. It was a spy center controlling Burkina Faso's resources. "What else is there?" asked Traoré, volcanic anger building in his voice. "We have audio recordings of private meetings by the base commander, General Matthews' secret discussions with the French company Total, with the American mining firm Newmont. They're talking about billions of dollars." At that moment, Traoré jumped to his feet. He walked to the window, clasped his hands behind his back. "Are you sure about the accuracy of these documents?" "We verified them from 3 different sources, sir. We had both voice analysis and digital signature verification done." Traoré turned steel, gleaming in his eyes. "Call General Matthews here immediately." But Traoré had a bigger plan forming in his mind. 2 hours later, NATO base commander General Matthews came to the presidential palace. The 52-year-old, experienced soldier was walking with his shoes clicking. Thinking this meeting was a routine protocol visit, his 3 assistants beside him were nervously holding their briefcases. As they entered the meeting hall, the wooden floor creaked. Traoré met him standing. However, he didn't greet him. He went straight to the point. "General Matthews," said Traoré in a voice cold as ice, "you've been operating a base in my country for 15 years, in the name of fighting terrorism." "Yes, Mr. President," said Matthews, grinning, leaning back in his chair. "We're conducting very successful operations. We're bringing stability to the region." "Stability?" Traoré lightly pushed the documents on the table with his fingers. "These reports tell a different story. Is monitoring my uranium mines also fighting terrorism?" Matthews' grin froze. His body language suddenly changed. What do you mean?" "You know very well what I mean," said Traoré, laying out the documents on the table one by one. "I have recordings of your secret meetings with Total Company. Every second of them at that moment." The atmosphere in the meeting hall became electrified. Matthews pulled back in his chair. His breathing quickened. "Mr. President," said Matthews, his voice trembling. These are baseless allegations. NATO came here to help you help." Traoré laughed bitterly. "What help?" "Sabotaging our energy agreement with China. Selling the GPS coordinates of my gold mines to the French." Matthews jumped to his feet, his face red. "These accusations are completely unacceptable." "What's unacceptable is what you've been doing here," said Traoré, his tone sharp as steel. "This base is closing. You will leave my country within 30 days. Matthews' jaw dropped. This is impossible. You can't make this decision alone." "Can't I?" Traoré narrowed his eyes and leaned forward. "This is my country. I am the president. This base isn't going anywhere," said Matthews, now grinning mockingly, drumming his fingers on the table. "This is beyond your power. Who do you think can kick out NATO? You're a small African country." Traoré walked calmly to his desk. He pulled out a thick document, stamped with the official seal from the drawer, and extended it toward Matthews. "This is the base closure decree. I signed it just an hour ago. You need to leave here in 30 days. Matthews grabbed the document and began reading. His eyes widened, his face paled. If you're serious about this, you're making a very big mistake. Very big. You've been making the mistake for 15 years, said Traoré with determination. Matthews threw the document on the table with a bang. The consequences of this decision will be severe. Washington will call, Paris will pressure. Brussels will impose sanctions. Let them come, said Traoré, shrugging. I don't care anymore. Matthews stood up, pointing his finger at Traoré. Well, then let's see if you can show the same courage 48 hours from now. As he headed to the door, he turned. This base won't leave, I guarantee that to you. And he left with hard steps, but Matthews didn't know that. He had only witnessed the first step of the plan. Traoré had already prepared. That evening, the news of the NATO base closure caused an earthquake. Effect on global news networks. CNN headlined NATO crisis in Africa. BBC said Burkina Faso's dangerous game. An emergency meeting was held. At the Pentagon, the French president urgently called Traoré and said, "Stop this madness," but the most surprising reaction came from Africa. The first call came from Ghana President Akufo-Addo Ibrahim. Finally, someone did it. It's time for us to get rid of these parasites too. The second call from Mali. Brother France has 3 bases with us tomorrow. I'm telling them the same thing. The third from Niger, we're closing the Germans' base too. You started it, we're continuing. That night at 23 Quartz in Traoré's secure communication room, history would be written in the encrypted video conference, attended by leaders of 15 African countries. Decisions that would change the continent's fate were being made. My friend, said Traoré, looking at the camera with an African map open on his desk. I might not be able to kick out NATO alone, but together we can save all of Africa. There was determination on the faces of African leaders, appearing one by one on the cameras. Senegal's President Sally. America's Dakar base is closing tomorrow. Chad leader Debbie, France's biggest base, is with us. I'm giving them 1 month. From Ghana, Akufo-Addo. The place the British brought as a training base is actually a spy center that's going too. And at that moment, the unexpected happened. The red phone on Traoré's desk rang. Direct line, the phone used only for emergencies. Yes, said Traoré. Run, Mr. President, this is the Defense Ministry. 50 military vehicles left the NATO base. They're coming toward the city. All the leaders in the conference room froze. The faces drawn on the screens tensed. Matthews is carrying out his threat, said Traoré in a calm voice. But we're prepared. Mali leader Goita Ibrahim, you're not alone. 200 Mali soldiers are waiting at the Burkina border from Niger. 300 of our soldiers will be there in 1 hour from Chad. Our Air Force is ready that night. History was written in Ouagadougou. When the NATO convoy was 10 kilometers from the city center, it was surrounded from all sides by African Union soldiers. Burkina Faso's 11,000 soldiers might not have been enough alone, but there were a total of 180,000 soldiers from 8 African countries. General Matthews called for the second time that night. What does this mean? Where did you find these soldiers from? My African brothers, said Traoré. You came with just 1 base, I came with the continent. The next morning, 12 African countries made simultaneous announcements. All foreign military bases on their territories were being closed. Mali closed France's 4 bases. Niger closed Germany's base. Senegal closed America's Dakar base. Chad closed France's Sahara Operations Center. The African Defense Freedom Pact was born. Within 24 hours, alarm bells were ringing at the Pentagon. The domino effect has started, said the CIA director, pounding his fist on his desk. We're losing all of Africa. The French president embarked on an emergency Africa tour. By private jet, but in every country he visited, he received the same answer. Too late. A week later, the African Defense Summit convened in Ouagadougou. 28 African countries participated, 50,000 people in the stadium, millions in the streets were celebrating. The agenda had one item: we're establishing our own defense system. We no longer need others to teach us security, said Traoré at the summit, raising his fist in the air. We will protect our own lands ourselves. Thunderous applause erupted from the stadium. The Ouagadougou Pact, signed at the end of the summit, established the African United Defense Force, headquartered in Burkina Faso, financed by African countries' own resources. General Matthews, after returning to Washington, was forced into mandatory retirement. The last sentence of his report to the Pentagon: we underestimated Traoré, we underestimated Africa. A year later, Traoré received a standing ovation at the UN General Assembly. Africa now stands on its own feet. We don't need anyone's protective umbrella. We don't need to live with anyone's permission when his speech ended. Representatives from 54 African countries stood up. The applause lasted 10 minutes. Today the red, yellow-green flag of Africa waves where the old NATO base was located. And for the first time in 15 years, the Sahel region is experiencing real peace because sometimes closing one door is more powerful than opening 1,000 doors. Traoré was right. He wasn't just closing a base. He was rewriting the entire future of Africa.